blade here, and the first thing we want to do, and what's nice about this setter is that I can take a 45 thousandth blade or a 55 thousandth thick blade and set them with the same setting, and it seems to perform the same. So keeping similar blades for what you're cutting mostly is, of course, making life easier for you when you are going to the grinder. And I did get some freebie demonstration blades from a couple of different companies. These head blocks here, and maybe I'll make a quick close-up video of this. Let's see, I'll try not to make it so shaky here, but let's see what we got. These head blocks here are adjustable side to side to change tooth spacing. So when I get these different branded blades on here, it's kind of been a headache. You have to unbolt these and slide these apart. But just let me reverse this camera a second. Try not to, well, is it not going to let me? Okay. Well, I'll turn this crank here and we can see how this mechanism kind of functions. These, that's the advancing pawl. You can see there the mechanism pushing each tooth in there. This thing is not happy that I don't have a blade in it, but maybe I'll put a blade in it here for you. That just, I'm sure there's videos online of how this thing's actually working, but anyways, let me put this back so we can see some function of this. Sorry about the background there. There's not much room in my shop. So we want to find the weld here first, and it's pretty distinctive. So looking around here, yep, here it is. They put the blade together and ground it down, and we're going to want to start on that so we have a start and finish point. Woodmizer is pretty good at making sure they land on a tooth that is, they have a left-right no-set raker system. Takes a little bit of finagling to get this down in here. So when they weld it, they make sure that the teeth are symmetrical and it will go through the blade consistently without having, say, two right set teeth there. So we're going to mark the weld here, both sides, so I can see when it's coming around. And I want to set up so that I can, and I've got this on this little wheelie cart because my shop is so crowded. We want to set up so that the teeth are in the right, land on the anvil correctly. Let's see. It's a little bit of a struggle. Okay, so that looks pretty centered. We use this to lock it in there. Make sure this band blade will go around. So what I'm looking at is these dial gauges. I want to make sure that when I crank this around, this will advance this pawl here. And I want to make sure that the teeth are still landing. This is, depending on how you're looking at it, a right set followed by a left set. So that looks good. So we crank it, and I look at my gauges, see that I'm landing on that 30 thousandths. And this one is a little under, so I just make little incremental changes until it's landing where I want, because as often the case, when I'm sawing these reclaim logs, I may hit quite a lot of junk. So the set can be out of one side where it may have hit something more so than the other, and certainly between blade to blade. And so I just want to keep an eye on what it's doing. And this one's still reading 24 thousandths. That one's 30. Now we're on running at 30, and I want to keep an eye on it in case we come to a damaged section of the blade. And I don't want anything going wildly different. So I'm just manually cranking this, watching these numbers. This one I feel is tending towards the high side. So I want to take that down a little bit more. It takes a little time to respond. I think the anvils are quite tight in their carriers here. So yeah, this looks like I'm getting both at 30 thousandths. Once I get some consistency, then I start going a little faster, and it's more. So now I'm watching where that mark was on my weld. I see it over there. Don't want to do things twice. So we're going to go through here. That one seems to be a little low again, and that's not unusual to find that one side got damaged more than another if you hit some junk. And I can see that this blade has in fact hit something, so that the set on this side is quite different than the set on that side, because it hit the foreign object differently. So I'm hoping to gain a little bit. I mark my blades when I do hit some metal to make sure I know that I don't want to use that blade again in a very sensitive sort of cut, which, I mean, an expensive log where it's very wide and I want a very flat cut. I'll mark this as hit metal, and I will probably show that on another video about the cheap drag style setter that you can get for, you know, $400 or $500 used. Works perfectly fine on these blades. I know the CBNs are nice. If I had unlimited funds, I would maybe invest in that, so someday when this business really takes off, I will buy one of those. But let's see, where are we with, sometimes that marker does get wore off a little bit, but nope, there we are, right behind the weld. Just want to look here. If you start going beyond it, it sets it a little more every time, and you could monkey with that, possibly more or less getting it